Wonderful. Well, we are live on the Zoom, live on YouTube. Thank you everyone who has joined us so far. We will get started in the next 2 minutes or so. So now's a chance if you need to get up, move around. Live on the Zoom, live on YouTube. That's the YouTube. Anyone who's here on the Zoom has about a 20-second head start on everything that's happening. I'm going to start to share my screen. Well, wonderful. As I said, welcome to Emerge's advocacy training around having the vote and raising our voice. We'll get started in the next 1 to 2 minutes, but this is an event to commemorate the 19th Amendment, which also falls during the Democratic National Convention. So it is quite a big day for us, and we are excited to be able to talk to you about, yes, 100 years ago today, some women, particularly white women, won the right to vote, but we now know that there's so much more that we can do and should do in order to make positive change in our communities. And that is what we're going to be covering over the next hour or so together. Well, to get started, I do want to thank everyone who has hopped on so far. Conversations like this, women coming together. This is how we change the face of politics and change the face of power. We know right now that our government, from the White House to Congress to our school boards, are not representative of their communities, are not reflective of their communities, and are not inclusive of all the voices that have something to share. As the training and curriculum director of Emerge, what I get the most joy out of is being in rooms full of powerful women. And I'm so excited and grateful to be in this virtual room with you again on this 100th anniversary of the ratification of 19th Amendment during a very historic convention. As a bit of housekeeping, we do have interpretation services. If you are joining us via the Zoom, you will be able to see our ASL interpreter, Addie, probably to the right of this slideshow. And if you are joining us over YouTube, take a look in the chat and there will be a link to join the Zoom. So if you are joining us over YouTube and would like some ASL interpretation services, please be looking at the chat and the YouTube for that. And welcome. I am going to be turning it over to Rashmi. She is the chair of our board here at Emerge, is a really true leader in helping us recruit, train, and provide a powerful network around Democratic women who aspire to run for office. So thank you for joining us here, Rashmi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rashmi Yadav Maria, and I'm the board chair of Emerge. Thank you so much for joining us on this very historic day to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. As we all know, there is still much more to be done to make our society more just. The vote is a wonderful tool in that fight, but there are many others as well. And at Emerge, we truly believe that our democracy is more effective when it reflects the diversity of our country and our communities. That's why we work every day to recruit, train, and provide a network of support for democratic self-identified women to run for office and to win. I hope that everyone joining this training considers running for office as an additional tool or tactic that you can use to make our society stronger. Thank you for believing in yourself, and we believe in you too. We really need you in this fight and in this movement. I hope that you're able to use the tools that you learned today to ensure our democracy gets even stronger over the next 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. I also want to introduce myself and my co-trainers here today. My name is Ryan Olson. I am the Training and Curriculum Director here at Emerge. Frida, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Frida Player Peters, and I am from Emerge, Tennessee. I'm the executive director. We were the 36th state to ratify the 19th Amendment. So happy Suffrage Day from the great state of Tennessee. And thanks for having me.
And Jill, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jill Barclay Roy. I have the honor of serving as the affiliate director here at Emerge. I'm also an alum of the Emerge Maine class of 2009.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill. And Addie, I know you aren't speaking, but is there a chance you can unmute yourself? I'm worried that folks might not be able to see you on the Zoom. Wonderful. Hopefully that works. Well, I do want to turn it over to you. I want this all to be an interactive training. We're excited to spend some time with you today. And again, just to kind of put this into perspective, right? 100 years ago, some of us won the vote. And that is a wonderful tool. It's an incredible tool and it's a powerful tool to make change. But it is one tool in a toolbox that is so important that all of us recognize those tools, tactics, abilities, and strategies that we all have to continue to make change on every level. So if people could use the chat either here in Zoom or on YouTube to put your name and your most recent political action. If you're on the Zoom, you should be able to see a chat button to put some information. Awesome. So we have Jessica. She is involved with Young Dems. Thank you so much for sharing, Jessica. Oh, wonderful. Valda formed Black Women for Biden. Thank you so much, Valda, for doing that. Haley is a board member on her local Chamber of Commerce. That is certainly political, yes. Wonderful. Jackie is phone banking in Wisconsin. Beautiful. Lindsay is texting for a couple of women running for Congress. That's great.
Maria from New York hosted the Rep 19 Power Conference with lots of Emerge sisters, including our very own President Ashanti Golar. Marcia volunteers for Doug Jones. Thank you. Let's send him back. Sylvia is a delegate and leads phone banks.
Wonderful. So what I hope this is clearly we are with a group of women who are already involved, already engaged, and already have a sense of how they can make sure their voice is heard outside of voting and in addition to voting. But what I hope we're able to provide over the next 53 minutes or so is, again, just additional tools and frameworks through which to think about your activism and how you make an impact on your communities. So let's talk about, again, as a quick overview, how do we create change? And the first thing we want to do is set the goal. And usually we think about this as what is the fire in your belly? When you wake up to the more ideal version of your world, what does that look like? What is a change you or your community wishes to see? What truly impacts your community? What is the thing that you want to see either on a macro level, right, as a lifetime achievement award, or something super feasible, something super tangible? Maybe it is the fact that your library closes too early, or there's a pothole in your street that local government officials just aren't paying attention to, or there isn't enough recycling service for your community. So I'd love to hear from a couple of folks. Please share one thing in your community that you would like to see changed, and that is the goal that we're going to be thinking of throughout the course of this training. And again, if you could use the chat for this, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I love that, Katie. Better relationships between the labor and county government. I think that's would be a really powerful goal. Blight removal, interesting. More children having a path to college, yes. A more diverse school board, wonderful. An electoral process that's easily understandable for all citizens. Criminal justice reform, more Black people in power in politics, yes. Yeah, we're talking a lot about similar things, right? How can we get more, inclusive and diverse voices into positions of power? How can we be thinking about how we fund different services and what truly serves our communities? How can we make sure that folks have access to the tools they need, be it housing or education, or medical care, right? There are so many things in our world, in our country, in our communities that desperately need change and motivation. So I'm going to take it to a real quick, simple example. I think all of you are at the SAT level, and this is for the elementary level, but that's great. But an example goal is it could be something as easy and mundane as wanting a puppy, right? I think a lot of people's first aspects of advocacy was as a child. And when I was a kid, I wanted a puppy. And this was the first time I advocated or organized. Now we need to think about our decision makers. So that's thinking about who has the power to enact this policy change. And this can either be at the level of government, so federal, state, or local, or also thinking about what branch of government, the executive, legislative, or judicial branch, right? Who has the power to actually make this change? And what does it take to, quote unquote, win? Do we need to get one person on board? Do we need to change 3 people on a school committee? Think about who are not just the school board, but who are the specific people we need to convince or shift or bring on board in order to see this change made. So for some of you, right, you talked about, let me see, reallocating of the police budget, right? Thinking about, okay, so we already have 2 city councilors who are on board with that. There's 2 city councilors who are very firmly opposed to that, but there's one in the middle who might be able to make the choice, the vote to make the difference. So how can we focus in on that? If you're talking about an equitable distribution of medical care, thinking about, okay, are we working at that at a state level or a federal level? And then who are your decision makers there? Are you trying to influence the legislative branch, right? The folks who are making the laws, or are you going to be trying to influence the executive branch and the folks who are kind of distributing those services and ensuring that they are done in the most equitable fashion? So if you have a sense, right, you have your issue, now put in the chat who you think a decision maker might be in your situation. And sometimes your decision maker isn't a specific person. Maybe it's the voters as a whole. Maybe it is a group of people. Right, so I'm seeing city council members, the mayor, a specific name. I love that. I don't know who Congressman Huffman is off the top of my head, but I'm glad you have a specific target with a specific name that makes it easier to convince them. A neighborhood association, for sure. And again, trying to dig in deeper, right? Like who on that neighborhood association, who on that county commission can be the one who makes a difference? Yeah, parents can be that. The mayor, yes, love that. Thank you all so much for contributing. So again, if we're going with the puppy example, the decision makers in this sense would be parents, right? Or caretakers or guardians. They are the ones who ultimately can determine whether or not we get the puppy. Me convincing my brother doesn't matter. Me convincing my friends doesn't matter. Me convincing my friends' parents doesn't matter. The goal is ultimately convincing my parents. So ultimately, what we need to think about is that if the decision makers, the person who had the power to make this happen, wanted it to happen, it would have already happened. So for the rest of the training, we're going to be talking about how we influence, pressure decision makers to enact the change we want to see, or if they aren't being receptive to that influence or that pressure, how we can change that decision maker and have someone in that seat who more accurately and fully represents our views and our values. So to give you a sense, what we're going to be doing for the next 47 minutes or so is going through a series of tactics that you can use to bear down and bring pressure to create the sort of change you want to see. So this is educating yourself and others, building community, engaging in conversation with the decision maker, protesting the status quo as it is, changing the decision maker, and also we're going to be talking about creative tactics that don't fall into those buckets. So again, I think we can put in the chat, right, with just a high level view. We have our thing we want to change, we have our goal, we have our decision maker, we have an overview of tactics. If you want to share or feel like you could share what kind of broad category of tactics you think would be helpful, please feel free to do that in the chat. So Colleen is already on it, right? She sent a letter to the editor about masks to her local newspaper. That is great. Thank you so much, Colleen, for raising your voice that way. Diana is protesting, thinks that protesting the status quo could be a strong tactic. That is awesome, Diana. Thank you. I truly appreciate how engaged folks are. Wonderful. Yeah, talking with other stakeholders. I love that, Jacqueline. Wonderful. And I'm going to turn it over to Frida to talk about educate as a tactic and this like kind of sub tactics that fall under that category. Thank you so much for joining us today, Frida.
Thank you. So education is so important because you want to know what you're talking about. What are you fighting about? What are the details to make sure that we actually have policy that fix the problems or a solution, or you're changing code. And so what you need to know to make sure you have a full grasp of your issue. And more importantly, you know what the opposition is going to say and how to rebut the opposition when they come and push back on your issue that you may think is very important. So you need to know, what are your assumptions? What is true, what is not? As in the golden retriever, you know, you might think they're a cute little dog and you might think they're lazy, but you realize the retriever's in the name, so they have a lot of energy. So do you have the lifestyle to know, do I have time to play ball with the golden retriever? Because they love to retrieve things. And so you have to have the energy to make sure you engage them and not think, oh, they're just a cute little puppy and they're just going to cuddle with me, and realizing, no, that may not be the truth. So what do you know about it? What do you know about that breed? But the same thing happens with issues. What do you know? What do you think you know? What's your assumption? What needs to curate to make sure that you have all the information you know to know the details about it? And so what has changed in the past? What has worked? But you get to know this by listening to people. You get to talk to, if this happened in another city, what did the stakeholders in that committee know? What did the organizers know? Who did they talk to? We talk to everyone from the policy designer to people that have to administer the actual issue, down to the actual voter or the citizen is actually going to engage and interact with them. How are they impacted? What do you need to consider? Is it transportation? Is it financial means to get there? What is their engagement and how do you get to know about that? So you need to listen to people like, how does this issue affect them on a day-to-day basis? And then how does it affect the people who actually implement it and actually have to put this into function? And so when you listen to them, you realize you may have to make a personal change. Like what's in you that's in behavior. If you're becoming a dog person, you realize you may not be able to go to happy hour after work because you have to take the dog out to make sure he's comfortable. So you might have to change a little bit of your lifestyle. You might have to change a little bit of your behavior. If you're talking about mental health, you're talking about what are things you know to engage people? How do you recognize the signs to make sure that you can able to talk to someone to make sure they can get to the resources without offending them, or make sure the stigma that we may have around it, that they can feel comfortable that you're not using words that are outdated or that may be found offensive. So what do you need to do to engage to make sure that you can actually live the authentic truth of the issue you're trying to change? And once you make those changes, then you begin to educate others. And like, hey, do you know this issue is going on? How do you figure that out? And how do you share this information? How do you make sure they understand? What's their point of view? How are they engaged with the issue? Is it a caregiver to realize, oh, I have these resources, how to make time to make sure to do it? If you're doing about defunding the police, where are you taking that money to? You're taking it from the police department to what other? You're taking it to the schools? Are you taking education? Are you taking it to parks? What does that look like? And what's the information they need to make sure you get the support, to make sure you can start persuading people to the other side? And then sometimes you have to have those hard conversations. Is the issue you're going to do going to affect someone's livelihood? If you say, hey, we're going to defund the police, someone thinks, oh, that means someone's going to get laid off. And that's someone's saying, but maybe no, we're just going to retrain you to engage the community in a more healthy manner. So you can be interactive, be more of a community advocate than coming something else. Or maybe if you're the puppy example, You know, did someone get bit by a dog so they're afraid? So you had that conversation about how do you engage that all dogs aren't bad, and maybe the dog wasn't raised properly so you didn't know how to engage you. So you have to start having those conversations to realize this is what I need to bring on board. This is why it's important to me. This is how it's going to affect you. But these are the things we're going to do to make sure that you're comfortable into doing that we can engage you in a full sense. And then when you do that, you have to shift the consciousness. So how do you shift the consciousness of a grassroots area? So you think about social media. That's a great way to talk about this is the issue I learned about. These how to engage. These are the issues we need to think about. Letters to the editor. We still have a lot of senior citizens and baby boomers who love to read the paper. I mean, people who commute on a day who still like to have that physical paper. Letters to the editor matter because seniors vote. And so that's how they get their information. Op-eds, it's a way of educating, getting those influencers saying this issue is important to me. And if it's important to me, it starts bringing attention. So you're starting to shift the consciousness on a grassroots level with social media, from a different base through letters to the editor, and then with influencers with op-eds, that you're creating awareness. So the conversation's happening at different points and different levels throughout the entire community.
All right. And when we think about taking action or creating change, it's all about building community. We can't do anything alone, whether it's running for office, engaging in activism, or even getting a new puppy. Sometimes you're going to need a group of people to help you out. So let's talk about building community and what that looks like. So when you're first starting out and thinking about taking a political action, getting involved in an issue, maybe the recent re-emergence of so many Black Lives Matter protests in so many of our communities across the country has inspired you to get involved. You can look for a local BLM chapter in your neighborhood. Similarly, if you're concerned about how this current administration is trying to take away our constitutional right as American citizens to vote, you can get involved in an organization that does voter protection, like your local chapter of the ACLU, or if you're in Georgia, Fair Fight, the organization that the Honorable Stacey Abrams started. So it's a great way to not maybe reinvent the wheel, but plug in your time and your talent and your energy into an organization that already exists. You also might want to think about how you can recruit people to come along with you. So often when we're thinking about taking the leap, about getting involved in community activism or trying to lobby our elected officials to make a change, I know many parents are getting involved in talking to members of their school boards across the country right now. You want more people to come along with you. So if you can recruit other individuals to join the cause, it's going to be more fun for you, and you're going to have more people and a greater impact in changing the cause. So I always say, look around to your people and start talking to them about the issue that you care about. So, when your friend participates in Try for a Cure to end cancer, she probably asks you to donate money to her cause and help spread the word about it. So in turn, you can say, hey friend, I helped you out when you were trying to raise money to fight cancer. Can you come and help me out with this issue that's going on in our community and join me to get involved? And you need to build coalitions. So sometimes the decision maker might not respond to you. And this can be a hard one. I've been involved in LGBTQ+ activism in my community here in Maine for years. I moved here 16 years ago. And something that I learned is that for some people to come along who make decisions about policies that impact our lives and who we love and how we can start our families, sometimes members of my community weren't the best messengers. That's a tough thing, but what that means is that we had to build coalitions. And so we found people, allies in our community who were willing to get involved and speak up for us. I actually had the distinct honor of coordinating the Republican effort, that's right, the Republican effort for the Freedom to Marry here in Maine in 2012. And it was an incredible experience for me to work with people who I don't usually see eye to eye on many policy issues, if any, but to work together to get involved to win the Freedom to Marry for my community. And that impacted my life. So we needed to engage folks that we might not otherwise think of engaging. And I always tell women when we're out training across the country to merge, Getting elected is one thing, knowing how to govern is another. And when you do run for office and you do win, because you will win if you run and if you get trained by Emerge, you have to work with people who you might disagree with on 10 issues on the one issue that you do agree with on. And that can be worth it. I know this is a really hard time in our country and in our communities. It's so divisive. I think that it's become very, very polarizing. And this is an opportunity for you to think about the issue that you're thinking of getting involved in and how you can work with folks that you might not otherwise work with.
So how to engage in a conversation. So one thing I forgot to say when I introduced myself, I am an elected official. So I know this very directly about how we're doing it. So as Jill said about when you're running and you're going to win, governing is the next step, and sometimes a difficult step. But how do you directly ask the decision maker? You can speak to them directly in their office. Hopefully when the pandemic calms down, we get back to normal, you'll be able to go to their office and have a conversation with them and make appointments. Town halls, there are a lot of virtual town halls you can engage with them, and public meetings. And there are public aspects of it where there's public engagement during the actual governing meeting, or other aspects where they may actually have a place for you to interact with. But you can speak to them directly. That's what we're here to do. We're actually here to serve the people and have a direct contact. And so the first way you can kind of do it is by calling them, is really kind of getting into the point of pick up the phone. This is a great time. We can't go anywhere, so we're at home. So call your elected officials, contact them. Sometimes if they're congressional, you may have to go through a staffer to make an appointment because they have a busy schedule and trying to schedule to in their home district in DC. But for our locals like me, call us directly. We're home. We're trying to, so we have a better access because we're not trying to run back and forth between meetings and do things like that. We're actually more accessible now than we ever have been before. So that's the one thing. Write them a letter or email. Different elected officials like to engage in different ways. A letter and email actually work. Email, you actually have a paper trail of what's going on and say, hey, I actually contacted you. And you have an actual response that you can use and to show to others. And actually an email also shows, you have some that want to really get engaged and write a detail in. It's a great place to do it. And also we can count how many people have engaged us. So that's another way to do it. Another way is a petition. And so a petition is to show that you have a following, that that there are people and that there's scores and maybe hundreds, in some places even 1,000 people that are really concerned about this. Because sometimes, if it's 3 or 4 people, we're like, were they supporters of me? Were they not? But do they really care about the issue? Or are there more pressing issues that we have to deal with? So if only 3 people are important, but I have another issue where I have 500 people, I'm going to deal with that one first because there's a critical mass that will benefit from it from the 3 people. So a petition is a great sign to say, hey, there's these people who are really concerned about it, and it's not just me, that there's actually a following to do it. And so lobbying. I also used to be a lobbyist in my past life too, so I've done this part also. So there's impactful and less impactful ways to do it. Constituents are impactful. Constituents vote for us. Constituents donate to our campaign. Constituents volunteer for us. But constituents, more importantly, and the most important thing, constituents, they hold us accountable. Constituents know when we have made bad decisions. They know the decision to agree with. The constituents always have a continued dialogue. Non-constituents, they come in and out of the district. They may pop in for a hot second and they leave and go somewhere else. And so they're not always engaged with us. We're not going to see a non-constituent in the grocery store, but I guarantee you, I'm going to see my neighbor at the grocery store when I go and they're going to say, Frida, how did you vote on the school board the other day? A non-constituent, they live on the side of town, they're not going to see me and I won't see them face to face and we won't have a connection. Personal stories. We have hearts. Politicians and elected officials have feelings too. And so those tug on us. And so those are things that we remember. Those are the things that get to us. How do we solve this problem? We heard the First Lady talk last night that it's hard. You have to deal with the different complex issues and how different people are affected by the issues. Those personal stories help us figure out how is somebody going to be affected by the issue, and those are going to be affected in an adverse way. How do we deal with that? Copy and paste scripts and letters. There's a low threshold. It's easy. We don't know if the person's doing it. Is it just a favor? Like Jill said, hey, can you do this little favor and just send this to it? Or is somebody really doing it? And that's the difference between a personal story. It's easy to get someone to say, hey, I think I'd do it. Sign on. And more people, the more people involved, that means that it's touching people's heart and it has to be dealt with. Fewer people, you know, be like, well, are you doing it because you don't like me, or you're doing it just because it's a very dear issue to you and nothing else, or it doesn't have the bigger impact of someone else. So the more people involved, the more people say, this is important to me, I want to solve this problem, is very impactful, because we know it has a critical mass and that we have to deal with it.
Rita. And if I may here, I think a lot of times people hear the word lobbying and think of lobbying and think of the very worst version of lobbying, right? Like, we do need to address what power looks like in our politics. We need to address what money looks like in our politics. We need to be looking at these systems as a whole. But you as a constituent, you as a voter, should never feel any sort of guilt or shame or anything around truly conveying what your values and what your needs are to the people whose job it is to represent you.
Yes, you're more important than the lobbyists. We listen to you more.
Yes.
So sometimes there's so many ways to get involved. You can write a letter to your elected official. You can show up and lobby. Well, right now you probably can't show up and lobby them anywhere, but you can call them, you can email them, you can lobby them with your opinion. You know, and sometimes you just have to take to the streets. Sometimes we have to protest. And I think that we've seen that in our country recently, is that right now we are facing two pandemics. First, the pandemic caused by COVID-19. And second, a pandemic caused by a lack of racial justice and great inequality all across our country. We've seen an uprising. Last night at the DNC, I was definitely in tears listening to the song by Springsteen, with all of those scenes of folks marching in the streets right now. And it's important. This is an important way to lift your voice, to show that you care about an issue, is to get out and protest. So you can participate in a rally, a march, or a protest. I have to say, I think when our side does this, we mask up and we observe social distancing to keep ourselves safe. That's still really, really important. And obviously, if it's not safe for you to go out and protest physically, there's lots of other ways to still engage. You can donate money to organizations that are protesting right now. I know that early on in the movement, we were supporting the bail fund to bail folks out of jail who were arrested for peacefully assembling and protesting. So there's lots of ways to support this, even if you can't physically be there. But if you can, go out, be safe, and participate. Taking to the streets, holding a sign, and raising your voice alongside others. You know, the more we're a chorus, the more the tune has to change. We can also take cues from our partners and our friends in labor. So we know that sometimes you have to boycott and you have to strike. When things are not changing, the biggest way that sometimes we can create change is to hit them where it hurts. And unfortunately, sometimes that's only the pocketbook for some of these decision makers. You know, telling an empathetic story about why healthcare matters, or why it's important to give workers breaks and cost of living raises doesn't always impact folks. Sometimes you really have to take it to the next level and boycott or strike. And we definitely have seen that create meaningful change, especially for workers in our country.
So now it's time to change the decision maker, because they didn't vote your way or they're not listening to you. And so this is a key part of our democracy. This is the beauty of democracy, that we can change the people who are not engaging the community in the rightful way that they should. And so how do you do that? You have the very intensive labor way, very labor intensive way, and a least labor intensive way. So least intensive, voter for the challenger. You just go in, you vote, and you move. It has some effect, because we as elected officials are looking for who's not voting for us too, besides who did, and how come we didn't have those votes. I had to explain it to my mother, who were the 70 people who didn't vote for me out of the 8,000 votes that I got. I'm like, Mom, I don't know who they are. But people are, so it's that people are knowing, but it's a brief moment in time to notice doing that. Next is to register people to vote. So you're counting, you're adding to that count of people voting against the incumbent or voting for the challenger. So the people that you register, you educate them, tell them about your issue, tell them what you have done, and tell them you've done all the tactics. Now we have to change the people in power. And you want to collect those votes against the incumbent and then supporting the challenger to show that. So that's one level. The next is donating to the challenger. We know it takes money to run for office, and we need that money to communicate and for your issue to be communicated to the thousands of voters in your district to show this is what you're going to do to change it. It takes money. It takes money to do digital ads or do the mailers. So you need it to communicate to say, hey, this is why candidate X hasn't been good to us, and this is why you need to vote for candidate Y. And this is what they're going to do to help move our issue. And that's a very notable thing because it helps give the challenger some energy and some momentum to do the correct thing. And then you can volunteer for the challenger, because this is important because it takes a lot of effort. They need support to tell people why the person in power is not doing it. And they need to hear it from another voter, not just from the candidate itself, saying, I'm trying to engage with this elected official and they did not hear me, they did not listen to me. They are not having a true concern for our district and for what we're trying to change. So I'm here to tell you to vote for the challenger because they're going to listen, they're going to engage, they have solution to us. And so this is very important because now you're putting some real constant effort. You're happening time and you're building on that momentum of voting as the challenger and then registering your voters and then putting money. You're building on the momentum to give that challenger some real energy to really tell the people why this challenger must go. And then next level, you can recruit someone to run for the seat. You realize someone else can do it. Someone, so you know, people who are really engaged. Get someone to do it. Make that elected official accountable. When they have to go against their opponent and say why they voted against something and why they do it, it holds that elected official accountable and realize I was not doing the right thing or was not following the moral compass. So it shows that, hey, people don't like you or people feel like you're not being engaged. That is a very intense thing to recruit someone, give them the energy and the confidence boost to do this and then support them through that journey. That's a very time consumptive and very a good investment into that person. And then next, you run. You can do it. Anyone can run for office. It's a great thing to do. And, you know, we elect officials, we're everyday normal people who just cared about something in our community and wanted to have a voice. And so the great way to do that is through our program Emerge. We will train you how to run a great campaign. We'll show you all the techniques. If you think you don't know how to raise money or how to do a communications plan or how to do field, we will teach you all that. You have the passion, you have the heart, you have the more to think. Only thing you need to do is just learn the technical aspects. And that's it. It's just technical tools to get you to do it. But you have what it really takes to make sure to do it. And we at Emerge, we want to train you to do that. We want to put you on the ballot and make a statement of change that we are the ones that are going to make our world great.
Thank you. And again, just to amplify what Frida said, is you can have the best possible advocacy. You can be putting on so much pressure. You can be really forcing this elected official to have to listen to you. But if there's no one running against them, if they know they are going to be reelected regardless of whether or not they listen to you or respond to you or enact that change you want to see, there is not too much teeth to your advocacy. And before coming on to Emerge National, I was the executive director of Emerge Massachusetts. And what we saw, and what I think is pretty prevalent across this country, is the same people holding seats for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And this is nothing against strong public servants who are continuing to serve their communities and staying in touch with their communities. But it is something to say that I think very often with 500,000 seats, almost 500,000 seats open every single year for folks to serve their communities, I definitely think there's an opportunity to get fresh voices that are fully engaged and in tune with the needs of their communities in office. So let's talk a bit about being creative, right? We talked a lot about tactics that are already, maybe you knew about them, maybe you didn't, maybe you had just never thought of them in this way. But we just skimmed the surface when it comes to educating yourself, educating others, protesting, lobbying, and further getting engaged. But what I really want to encourage people to do is think about turn the camera back on yourself for a second. What skills, what abilities, What connections do you have? What is the special power that Frida brings to the table, or Jill brings to the table, or Addie brings to the table? And match that to ways you can help us move towards your goal. Match that to the change you want to see and how you can be helpful in this movement. So if you have website design, make websites for candidates, make websites for causes, help make them further accessible, right? If you have the ability to speak in another language, help translate websites or translate materials. If you're an artist, create art to shift consciousness, create poetry. If you're a musician, offer your musical talents to before fundraisers or before webinars. Think, Colleen put into the chat, is thinking about making cookies for events, right? That is a great post-COVID thing to be able to do. So much of this, right? We are incredibly powerful. I am not saying to diminish that, but it is very hard to create change solely on your own. And what we found, having trained over 4,000 Democratic women to run for office, is very rarely, if ever, do they run on their own. They run with their friends, they run with their families, they run with their volunteers. And yes, a lot of times these volunteers are helping to make phone calls, they're donating to the campaign. In pre-COVID times, they were knocking on doors. But there were also volunteers who helped take care of the candidates' kids, who were willing to come over and help her tidy up her home, who, like, similarly to, if someone has a new baby, brought over frozen casseroles, right, would bring that to the candidate so that after a full day of campaign, she could have a healthy, hearty meal to come home to. And I think this is a place too that I really encourage everyone, as we're thinking not only in the time between now and November, but if we think about what we want our activism post-November to look like. Our activism in 2021 to look like, when we have midterms in 2022, when we're thinking about municipal elections again in 2023, right? What are the unique skills that you can build and bring and develop into this movement?
So our time and our energy are unfortunately finite. I always say that if you want something to get done, you give it to a busy woman, because oftentimes as women, we're able to multitask and really time manage like nobody's business. And I love that about us. But you have to decide how you're going to be able to create the most change you possibly can with the resources that you have. And the first resource that you have is your time and your energy. So you have to think about what tactics you can engage in with the resource that you have. You're likely going to need more than one. So if you're trying to create change around an issue, maybe expanding absentee voting in your state, that's a good one. You're going to need more than one tactic. So you could create a list of the tactics that you think are the most promising. So from this training tonight, we heard you could start writing letters to your elected officials to lobby them. You could recruit someone else to run for the seat that they sit in. You could join a protest in your state or in your city, or you could run for office yourself. So once you have your list of tactics that you think are available to you that we talked about tonight, and maybe some others that we didn't talk about, you should rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how well your resources match the tactic. So is this the right time? We always say when someone's running for office, is this the right time for you? Do you have the support system and the endurance that it's going to take to get through a complicated race? Unfortunately, in March, when the pandemic really hit and a lot of us were all shifting gears and pivoting, a lot of campaigns had to change too. And unfortunately, some of our candidates that were running had to make the difficult choice not to continue to run for office. It was just a reality of their lives. All of a sudden, they were trying to work from home, homeschool their kids, and support their aging parents. And running for office just didn't fit with their life at that time. So you really have to think about that. Think about how well your resources are going to match the tactic and how effective you think the tactic will be. So for me, I used to love a good protest. I used to protest like nobody's business. I was involved in helping found a pride organization here in Maine. And I definitely believe very much and align myself with the feeling that the first Pride was a protest, and it's important to continue to protest for our rights as queer people in this country. But right now, for me, I don't have all of the time and energy in the world to continue doing my job all across this country with Emerge and to attend every protest that I want to attend. So I have to make decisions about where I can spend my time, how many events I can personally go to, what protests I can attend, and still have the energy it's going to take for me to get up every day and do my job here at Emerge, which I believe is changing the world too. So you have to think about that and evaluate it and get some buy-in from other people. Look around you, get some advice, do a gut check. What's going to be the best option for you? What race is going to be the best race for you to run? So definitely, I wish we could all be like Congresswoman Lucy McBath and run for Congress. But sometimes we need to start at the local level and run for school board, run for city council, run for the planning board, get seated on the Human Rights Commission for your city. Two of my Emerge Maine sisters started the Human Rights Commission here in South Portland, Maine, where I live. And I am really excited to lend my time and my energy to that effort as we look for ways to expand racial justice and justice for LGBT people here in the town that I live in.
Wonderful. So we still have some time, and I definitely want to keep this conversation going, but we haven't heard from y'all in a while. So again, I want you all to chime in. I'd love to, if you feel comfortable sharing your name, but share one action that you're planning on taking to further your goal, and one word to describe how you're feeling right now. So someone who is inspired to join the Iowa Public Health Association so that you can join them in lobbying. That is beautiful. Thank you so much. So if other folks can share, again, what's one action you hope to take and one word to describe how you're feeling as we're reaching the last quarter of this training. Yeah, someone's willing to ready to watch Jill Biden's speech. Very true. Love to hear from just a couple more people. Great. Wonderful. Someone's looking to find a way to use her children's nap time to call or support for campaigns. I love that. Thank you so much. Someone's feeling inspired. Someone is planning to find more creative ways to engage with their new community. They moved right before the pandemic. So yeah, that's really important to start to find your people. I really appreciate you doing that.
Joining a local commission or committee. Yes. And so often this is about getting appointed, and there's usually spots available because they need people. So check that out. Check out the commissions.
Kimberly is feeling hopeful and is looking to see how she can make phone calls for campaigns.
Mimi is empowered now and ready to run for office. Yay, woo! Mimi. Bring it on.
Mimi.
We have Diana, who's going to look for taking photographs to poor housing commissions, because sometimes people don't believe it until they see it. So that's a great thing to show.
Amazing.
Awesome. Leslie's feeling motivated, and she's joining a local coalition to push the council to adjust their budget. Yes.
Colleen's going to help recruit participants for the next training we do. Sign up for our email list so you know when we're going to be providing training. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Wonderful.
Kara is, I hope I said your name correctly. If not, I apologize. Wrote and mailed 200 postcards to folks in Miami to vote early. Yes, we have to vote early. We know that this president's trying to sabotage the election, so we've got to do everything we can to get out the vote early.
Yes, we have to bank those votes.
Wonderful. And again, if this was at all of interest to you, right, we over a very long process, women have won the right to vote. White women about 100 years ago, Black women through the civil rights movement Native women in the late 1970s. And we are still fighting for that right to vote. There are still communities where folks are being disenfranchised. They are taking away post offices when we are trying to expand the vote by mail ballot. And this work we're doing to protect the vote is vital. And that this is a yes and situation. We can do more than vote. And what I'm going to encourage everyone to do is think about how, yes, cast your ballot in whatever primaries you may still have left, cast your ballot in November, vote early, vote by mail, bring your friends and family to vote, ensure your vote is counted. And think about ways you can still make change in your community, be it through lobbying an elected official, sending postcards, joining an organization, recruiting other folks to join the organization, mentoring a young woman in your community or a young person in your community, and even becoming the decision maker yourself. Because once you are at that point of being the decision maker, you don't need to push, you don't need to advocate, you don't need to influence, you need to listen. And I know just based on the people we've had and the comments we've had on this call, I know our country would be better if every single person on this call was holding elected office today. So I encourage you to check out emergeamerica.org, sign up for more information, sign up for one of our trainings. We have affiliates in 27 states. We're looking to train hundreds of women within the next year, and we hope that some of them are you. And we do have time for a bit of a Q&A. We have 10 minutes left. And again, thank you so much for Addie for providing ASL interpretation for us. Thank you also to Jill and Frida for co-presenting with me. And I am happy to stay on for the next 5 to 10 minutes or so for any questions that folks have.
I love the quote that Rosa just shared from Jennifer O'Malley Dillon. Ambitious women make history, change the world, and win. That could not be more true.
Yes, no matter what age, no matter how young you are or how old you are, you can always make a change.
Amen.
We can find it soon.
Oh, someone asked about how we started the Human Rights Commission in Maine. Well, that's a little ambitious. I did not start the Human Rights Commission in Maine, but we do have one, and it's amazing. And I've definitely engaged with them in lots of moments. My Emerge sisters, Counselor Decca Delac, and an activist who also ran for office herself, who I know is going to run for office again, Margaret Brownlee, started a Human Rights Commission here in South Portland, Maine, where I live, in response to some of the racial injustices that were happening in our state and around the country. And basically how they did it was they got a couple, Decca is a city councilor. She's actually my city councilor, the first Somali woman elected to the South Portland City Council here in Maine. And she introduced this idea to the rest of the city council and got the votes. And Margaret put together an amazing presentation, and basically we lobbied the city council to create the Human Rights Commission in our city. And that commission is going to look at training opportunities, community events, maybe some policies that need to change in the city. For example, we don't have maternity or paternity leave for our city employees, and that's a really big equity issue. So I'm just excited to work with them, and that's how it happened. Basically, one woman had an idea, approached another woman, and got it done. So if you don't have a Human Rights Commission in your local city, approach one of your city councilors that you think would be amenable to helping.
And to Colleen's question about processing your ballot, you can contact either your state Secretary of State, and there's something on their website, or you can call your local election commission and your local administrator of elections, and they will show you how to apply for absentee ballot, and then also how to return the ballot. A lot of election commissions, you can actually drop off your ballot at the election commission's office. or a place designated by the Election Commission, might be their warehouse where they actually process it, or the actual office. So you can call your local administrator of elections, and they can tell you how to process your ballot in person and make sure it gets counted.
A lot of ballots haven't been sent out yet. I know here where I live, they just started taking applications for absentee ballots. And so they're not going to be sent out for a few more weeks.
Yeah, a lot of places, they're just finished processing their primary, so they have to wait to see who's on the ballot and then redesign and print the ballots before they can mail them out.
And
Yeah.
our city clerks, I know, just put out a message today to everyone who had applied saying, thanks for your patience. We've been inundated with applications for absentee ballots. So that gives me so much hope. But just keep in mind, you know, your municipality might have 1 or 2 city clerks only trying to process all of these. So I'm sure they're going to be earning some overtime. Maybe we should drop off casseroles to them.
And make sure you know the process. Some places you have to get an application to apply for the ballot for the amount to be mailed to you, and some is a much simpler process. So make sure you know the process and you have time for that. Yes, Rosie, you have very good quotes. Yep, John Lewis spent a lot of time here in Tennessee, here in Nashville. He went to school here, to college here, and spent a lot of times, and had gotten arrested a couple of times here too when he was desegregating the lunch counters while he was doing his freedom marches too in Alabama.
I do want to see we have about 5 minutes left. If there's any more questions about tactics, selecting tactics, anything that you want to commit to in this space to help have some accountability around it, or any tactics that you can think of that we didn't share. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any at the moment, so I do want to just share some really, truly genuine gratitude. I know there's so much going on in people's lives right now. And it is incredible that given, again, a health pandemic, an economic crisis, reawakening of our consciousness around race, that we have so many folks who are willing to spend time and energy learning how to make it better and transform and create the sort of community we want to see for not only our own future, but the future of the next generation. So please, again, thank you all for joining us. This is how we change the face of politics. This is how we change the face of power. It's by democratic, self-identified women getting together and making positive change. And I'm excited to see you all do that. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and enjoy the rest of the convention. And here's to the next 100 years of women having the vote.
Thank you for your leadership, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Addie.
Thank you, Addie.
Loved it.